Josh?
Appreciate it, Matt. Mr. Kresko, yeah, like Matt said, I've worked with Matt for many years now. If you guys know any people that want a job, please let me know. Let me know. Jobs. We're always hiring. Had to get my little punch in for Matt. Just a show of hands, though, so I know kind of who's all in the room. How many of you guys actually own your own business? Raise your hand. Okay, cool. So we got a lot of entrepreneurs. How many of you guys are trying to start your own business within the next 5 years? Raise your hand. Got a few people in the room on that? All right, cool. So I want to kind of try to ping pong around. Any questions you guys have, super dynamic, super open to talk about whatever. I'm pretty much an open book, though, when it comes to life, business, whatever it might be. So if you have any questions, there's nothing too inappropriate to ask. I'll pretty much answer anything you could possibly ever think of or want to know. Super open and transparent about any of it. I'm sure some of these guys in the room will have a few of them. But one of the big things, though, like Matt said, I started Drive in about 2012. Had zero funding. Went to Missouri State, local St. Louis guy. Grew up in South County. Mom's a single mother hairdresser. Dad was an immigrant from Syria who was evading and leaving the civil wars over there. But raised by my mother. Grew up super dirt poor in South County. Nothing. Absolutely nothing at all. Started doing that, did a lot of event marketing for Red Bull, threw some parties in college, realized that I thought I wanted to open and start a bar. So when I was 22, built a bar for my college project. It's a little place in Soulard. Ended up realizing being a bar owner sucks, right? It's very difficult to run a bar that you drink at and hang out at all the time. Creates a really weird work-life balance for you, right? So I understood early that that wasn't my calling. That's not what I wanted to do. I didn't really find a lot of fulfillment in that. And kind of started figuring out where the hole in the gap in the market is, right? What should I do? After I got out of that, my biggest thing that I wanted to focus on is where was the opportunity at in order to scale something that no one else was really doing yet. If you guys remember, though, back in 2012, the iPhone just came out in 2009. So starting an advertising agency, specifically social media dominant, in 2011, 2012 was pretty much insane because iPhones just came out. So social and digital was just transferring from a desktop computer, where Matt sat in his mom's basement, on a CRT TV, thick yellow thing, and sat there and talked to girls on AIM, And then it transformed into, he's still on AIM. It's like Pin Daddy 12, I think, was your AIM name. So it was really transforming, though, and I saw the kind of a shift where the attention span was going, and then putting it in the palm of your pocket. I'm a huge component. I love to focus on businesses that are human-based, right? Because you don't have a product. We sell air. That's it. It takes a nerd and a MacBook and a cool guy or girl to go sell the product, right? And we sell air. We sell ideas. We sell thought processes. So scalability becomes easier than what I thought in the beginning. And that was one of my big first life lessons, is that there's never the right time to scale. Never is. There will always be reasons why you shouldn't scale, why it's going to disrupt you, why it's not the right time. Those are all just excuses. From my first office to my second office, we wasted about 5 years. And then we started to realize that, hey, it's never going to be the right time. When we opened our second office in Nashville specifically, it was kind of like a roll of the dice. My VP of operations, who's my VP of operations now, she's now my COO. She was married, and she called me. She's like, "I'm having a kid," and we were at that age where I was like, "Is this good or bad?" Right? And so she's like, "It's good. My husband." All right, okay, cool. All right. And she's like, "Bad news is though, I'm moving to Nashville." Right? We're in St. Louis. You got to be here to work here. And so I kind of just spewed it out because I talk a lot off the cuff, and I was like, "We'll open in Nashville," right? And then we started opening an office in Nashville. Because one of the big things that you have to think about in life, and there's going to be a lot of people that come into it, some people in your life for a reason, some stay for a season, and some stay for a lifetime, right? And you really have to be evaluating that when you're looking at your employees. Is this person here for a season? Are they here for a reason, for a change that I need to make personally as a leader, right? Or are they here for a lifetime, And a lot of those people that you're going to work with or partner with or be employees for, right, you're just the reason for a mind shift moment. But that few 3% of people that are here for a lifetime, you do whatever the fuck it takes to keep that person, to make that person happy, and you treat them like a partner even though they're not, right? And I really do live by that. I take a deep invested relationship with each one of my business partners, which are my employees, right? They're my partners. Without my partners, without my coworkers, without my employees, I would be nowhere. You know, now as we've scaled, I have 210, 215 employees across the country, between St. Louis, Nashville, Miami, Atlanta. Tampa's opening in like 3 months, and Dallas is opening in February. Then we're moving to Scottsdale and San Diego. But those people, though, that are with me for a lifetime are the people who are moving around the country for me, right? Uplifting their lives and moving across the board. It's easy to sell social media. It's easy to sell whatever your widget is. It's much more difficult to sell someone's life, right? And that's what you are doing as a leader, is you're selling someone to follow your life mission and your life goal, right? And that's one of the big reasons why whenever I find those employees that are here for a lifetime, that I do whatever it takes to keep them happy and to push them in the direction they need to go to, because that employee is giving up their goals, you know, their ideas, their dreams, to help hop on your train and run with it. And so I really do believe in that a lot of people are here for a lifetime, a reason, or a period of time. Now, it becomes challenging, though, as you're scaling this, to determine what people are here for what, right? And making sure that they stay on that trajectory is a very difficult thing. You know, over the past 10 years that I've done this, probably have had 600, 700 employees. And there's a lot of them that I thought they were going to be here for a lifetime, and they weren't. They weren't the right fit. They were only here for a season. And so you really have to think about that and focus on that, is how to identify those warning signs that someone's going from a lifetime to a season, and how to identify if somebody's going from a season to a reason, right? And those life lessons, those coaching moments. A lot of times as humans, we stick our heads in the sand and ignore all the warning signs that are going around us. You know, I know every single guy in this room can speak to that with their boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever the fuck you're into. And you think that something's not an issue and brewing and brewing and brewing, you're ignoring it because you're so focused and busy on something else. And then what happens is, though, you change people's career trajectories and their path and then where they're going with you, right? By ignoring that, by being too busy. And that's one of the biggest things I always preach to my partners, my company, my employees, my clients, is that no one is actually busy, right? With a show of hands, how many of you guys watched the Squid Games? Right? Good half the group. How many of you guys watch Netflix? Right? Raise your hand. Everybody in the room. So no one is actually fucking busy, right? And that's the first thing you have to realize in life and sales, is that everybody likes to plan and pretend that they're busy. Right? I've got 200-something employees, we do $30-something million, coast to coast, and I still play NHL 2022. Right? Find me on PlayStation, Josh Sam 30, I'll beat you. But I still have time to do that. I still have time to travel, have a girlfriend in California, and then go across the country and do all this stuff. You know, this morning I woke up in Cali in LA at 4 a.m., hammered out a bunch of meetings, flew here, hopped right off the plane, did 2 meetings, then another talk right before this, and now I'm here with you guys, and I'm going to dinner with 4 more employees right after that. So you always have more time, right? But the big thing that poor people say is, I don't have time and I don't have money. What I call that is dead in the water. So if you're somebody that doesn't have a lot of money, doesn't have a lot of capital, and you're trying to start something up or grow into something, you better have a fuck ton of time. Because if you don't have time and you don't have money, you will never go anywhere. Now, if you have time and you have money, you can get lightning in a bottle and move fast, right? So you got to be thinking about that for yourself. Which one is it? And back when I started my Nashville office, you know, I had a lot of time. I didn't have a lot of money. I had almost no money when I did that. You know, I dumped every dollar that I had left over into that market to open that office up there, you know? And we started with a very, very small, it was like a musician recording studio. If you guys are familiar with downtown Nashville, It's right downtown. It's, I forget what it was, but Exit 6, like music studio. And they had people literally recording guitars, and we're on like client meetings in a room next to them that was like the size of a closet. Just to get that office up and running, we dumped everything into it. But I had a shit ton of time. So I would drive from St. Louis to Nashville, and I would do some meetings in the morning in St. Louis, get in the car, drive to Nashville, do employee meetings after hours. When I got there, it's a 4-hour drive, 5-hour drive. And the next morning do meetings, takeovers, selling deals, and then head back right in the car, drive back to St. Louis. Because I had time, I didn't have money, right? And then the money starts stacking, now you're taking 45-minute flights. Then I start closing deals in 2 cities at the same time. And that's where you gotta really dive in and grab those employees that are there for a reason, right? And there's a lot of employees that taught me a lot of valuable lessons over the years of what loyalty really means, what loyalty really looks like. You know, and I would say one of my biggest mistakes as an owner that I made is that I would constantly do whatever I could to make employees happy whenever they brought it to me, but then bastardize those lifelong employees that were there for the lifetime because they didn't complain, right? And so what ended up happening was I started creating a culture, though, of complainers. The more you complain, the more you get, right? And the people that are good to you, the less they get, because they're just being normal people and not sacks of shit like the other people are. It took me years to figure this out, though. I spent a ton of money chasing after people to try to make them happy that really were just there for a reason, right? Recruit better, hire better, interview better, be fast to fire, slow to hire, right? A lot of those mentalities came from that. But when you're scaling those businesses, you always have to go back to those core principles and really, really think about that and really put yourself in the position of not just your customer, but your employee. I'm so heavily employee focused and centric now. And a lot of the line level people in my company don't even realize it because I'm passing it down now through multiple layers of people, right? But my whole focus right now as a boss isn't client acquisition. It's employee acquisition. It's retaining and flipping employees from being there in the moment to being there for a season and then being there for a lifetime. I want lifetime employees. I want it to be like, this is my only career. I have no other options. And I like to tell some of my sales guys this, I will ruin you. You will never be allowed to go get a job anywhere else because you are so groomed for my organization, you are fucked. Because once that happens though, you have a lifetime employee now. They're unhireable because they are groomed specifically for you. And so over the years though, it's taken me many, many years, it costs a shit ton of money to go into that thought process and ideology. But the faster you realize that no one's actually busy, the faster the excuses start falling off. And so what I like to do with a lot of my leaders I drive is I'll tell them, write on a board, right? Go on the board and on your pieces of paper, write down 40 years from now, what do you look like? Are you still a little fat, right? You more in shape? What are your hobbies? What are your goals? You married? You not married? Where do you want to be in 40 years from now? What does that version of you look like? What does the best version of you look like 40 years from now? Not just the version you think you're going to be, but what does the best version of you look like, right? Maybe Matt gets hair transplants and all of a sudden he's got like long dreadlocks or whatever going on, right?
Totally got confidence.
But now think about that for your business, or think about that for your personal income. Where do you want to be 40 years from now in your personal income? 30 years from now in your personal income? 20 years from now for some of the guys that are a little bit older, right? Where do you want to be at financially? Take that number down, write it down. How do I do it in 10? Time or money, right? How do I do this in 10 years? And then that's your goal. Your goal for 10 years should not be what your 10-year goal is. Your goal for 10 years should be what your 2 or 3 year, your 10-year goal should be your 2 or 3 year goal, right? Your 30 or 40-year goal should be your 10-year goal. How do I do it faster? Because being busy is just an illusion, right? No one is actually ever busy. You don't need the 30 years, you don't need the 40 years to do it. So for me, my goal was to get Drive to $100 million, right? That was my 30-year goal, was to get Drive to $100 million. Didn't do it in 10. A lot of bumps along the way, a lot of life lessons, a lot of learning experiences, a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and cries. But I figured out what the foundation is, right? Originally, when we started this, our thought process was we open one hub, we open one office, and we service that one office, and we'll do everything virtually, right? The virtual world will really get us there. But the one thing that we fucked up on, though, is we discredited the human condition. Wanting to touch somebody, right? Wanting to talk to somebody, wanting to break bread with somebody, wanting to get a cocktail with somebody, wanting to get a dinner with somebody. And we realized this, year 4, year 3, or year 4 at Drive, and we created a position around this called the Chief Experience Officer. And so we really started going really deep into the human factor, right? We're a digital ad agency. We sell air, but we have to have physical buildings so that way people can build those human relationships, right? Bringing back in to the real life element to sales and business. Because everybody wants to go on a Zoom meeting. Everybody wants to get a Zoom call. How many of you guys did a Zoom meeting this week? Raise your hand. How impersonal is it? Right? Like, yeah, you all want to work from home because you get to wear comfy pants, right? You just wear a shirt up top and you wear swim trunks down below, right? But you're not really paying attention. You're not connecting with that person. I took a meeting last week for my pool in LA, right? That shouldn't happen. How can you ever bond with somebody and really give them a good service or good product or really care about them if you don't even care to put fucking pants on? And so we realized this, though, early on, that the technology was pushing people this way, and a lot of my competitors were going national, but just having hubs and outbound calling from there. And so we wanted to flip it and do the inverse of it, go back to the basics, and do it all in person. So that way we can have a competitive advantage just being in real life. And then we started to slap experiences into it. So one of the things that we're more notorious for with our clients is that we have a chief experience officer, and their entire job is only to try to figure out what's something cool that this person would like. And let's do it, no matter the cost. Right? Cost aside, clients are clients. It's not this one pays me this much money, this one pays me this much money. It's a client, it's a client. What can we do that's a cool experience for them? So we've taken clients everywhere from skydiving, right, to NBA games, to hitting baseballs in Busch Stadium, to skating at the Enterprise Center on the ice and shooting goals. Anything and everything you could possibly ever imagine, we've tried and attempted to do with our clients, with unlimited expenses with it behind it. And the thought process with it is one of two things will happen. Either I'll get a partner for life that will always remember their experience with me as long as I give a good service, as long as I give a good product, I'll have a partner for life, because no other vendor is going to match that relationship. Or I'm going to get an employee for life. Because how many jobs do you get to go skydiving for free to go hang out with the client? As long as I get one of those two from those transactions and don't go broke doing it, right, that builds relationships for life, and hopefully I can kill two birds with one stone. And so we really duplicated that across the company, though, on pushing an expansion out, is making our focus of our business the humans inside of it, and not as much about the profitability, right? It's all about the human side of it. Now, you still have to take profit into consideration, right? You still have to take money home. That's my job, not my employees' jobs, right? So I have to figure out that puzzle. I've got to crack that code as the leader. Anybody have any questions yet? Questions? Bueller? Anything?
Do you have any extra open spots for that 4-person dinner after this? Or?
Yeah, you can come with us.
Okay.
Yeah. Tim, you can call you and see if we can bump it up with you.
I'm kidding. My wife.
No, we'll do it. No, you're coming to dinner now.
Yeah.
I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
You started in 2012, right?
Correct.
So 10 years on the dot.
Yep.
What did Josh look like in 2012, both physically
Fat.
and
Fat as fuck.
Thank you. But more importantly, mentally, right? Like going from that to not only where the company is now, where you are now, how has, we talked about the money, how that shifted, obviously drives a lot bigger, your pocket goes bigger. What is your mentality? How has your mentality shifted in terms of your confidence and just in terms of who you are as an individual in 10 years in doing that?
I mean, I was a child. When I first started Drive, I was legitimately a fat child. You know, I was about 285 pounds. I'm about 190 right now. I was super out of shape, super out of weight. I used to live at the Laurel off Wash Ave, for my people that are familiar, right next to the Dome. I'd get winded walking here. I'm like, oh my God, it's a long walk. And like, it's like 3 blocks. So I was really, really, really out of shape, and I was mentally lazy. I was super mentally lazy. Like, I knew I had something that I wanted to do, and I knew I had a product, but I couldn't figure out how to expand and sell past myself. And so that's really one of the big reasons why I brought in a partner. You know, I thought I needed capital, but I really needed a babysitter. And so when I started the business myself, you know, you know, it's kind of, most people know about this now. When I sold the bar, I took a shit ton of money, went to Vegas, blew like 75 grand and had no backup plan at like 22, 23 years old. And then came back and was like, oh no, I need money to live. So back against the wall mentality is how I can play it. Back was against the wall, and I had a few employees. I brought over one of my fraternity brothers from Missouri State. He was working at Stiefel at the time. Brought him over to work full time for me, and that took pretty much all my profit to do that. So I started going out and selling. I wasn't a salesperson. And so I thought, okay, well, I got to start selling. I had to figure out the sales thing. So I started juicing my personal network, selling it a lot. And then we got to a point, though, where I was either going to have to move back in with my mom, and at being 24 years old, that's not too cool for your sex life, right? Like, come to my mom's basement in South County. We'll have a good time. I promise you I'm an entrepreneur. It's a real business. Right? Wow. So I was like, okay, well, that's probably not going to fly for my personal life. That's not going to be too cool. Or I have to go out there and raise money. And, you know, my business partner, Andrew, is a complete psychopath. And I met him randomly through a girlfriend at the time. And she's like, you guys really hit it off. You should talk to each other. And I kind of gave him the pitch on what we do. He's like, well, let me see you give somebody a demo. I was like, what's a demo? He's like how you explain it to clients. I was like, oh, okay. He's like, do you have like a deck? I was like, what's a deck? Yeah, that's where I started. And so we went to Bobby's place. Really very funny man. So he makes me go to Bobby's place with my girlfriend at the time and his girlfriend. He's like, okay, girls, go sit at Q on Main Street. And then I'm going to go watch him do this thing over at Bobby's place. And both the girls have never met each other. This is a very confusing scenario, you know. So we go to Bobby's place, and I'm pitching the owners of Bobby's place at the time. And we had to be fast, though, because Drew wanted to go to the Zach Brown Band concert afterwards. So he's like, all right, we got to do this in 45 minutes, though, because we're going to miss the concert. Like, okay. So I started demoing and pitching them on it, and they signed up at the moment in time. It was like we were offering our services for like $500 or $600 a month. Put in perspective now, we charge like, you know, $3,800 is our average retainer for our clients. Packages, you know, up to $8 million, you know, is low, and our lowest package is $3,300 now. At the time, it was like $500-600 or something like that. We were charging people weekly. You know, they could pay us however form they wanted to. It didn't matter. And then right after that, they was like, yeah, sure, we'll sign up and do it. And I was like, okay, great, let's do it. And he's like, do you have contracts? I was like, I don't have contracts. We just kind of start doing stuff. He's like, okay. He's like, I'll give you $1 million right now for half the business. And then me, I'm sitting there thinking in my head, like, what a fucking sucker, right? I just sold him half my business for $1 million, and I only have like a couple $100,000 in clients with no contracts, no real systems. And I told him, I was like, I'll take the money from you, but like, how are we gonna get more people? And he's like, we'll sign a contract. As soon as we sign a contract, I'll explain to you how you do sales. And so, signed the contract, puts $1 million in the account. I'm like, fuck yeah, this is awesome, right? I just went from 0 to hero. I don't have to move back with my mom. All problems are solved. Not a big deal at all. And then he said, here's what you're gonna do. He said, take out a piece of paper, write this down. You're gonna pick the phone up and fucking call. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, go on Google and find every business you can and just start calling and say, what are you doing? Hey, can I come out there and show you what we're doing? And he's like, that's all you have to do. And so we literally went back to his apartment at the time, which was also on Wash Ave, and he's like, watch. He pulls up Yelp, pulls the first bar and restaurant up. He's like, hey, my name's Andrew from Drive Social Media. I wanted to come out there and talk about how you can make money off social media marketing. Can I come by today, 30 minutes, 40 minutes from now? First person said, nope, hung up the phone. I was like, huh, look at that, it didn't work. Did it 2 or 3 more times and booked a meeting. It's like, holy shit, it is literally that easy of just picking up the phone and calling and asking people, what are you doing? At the time, $1 million seemed like a really good deal. 10 years later, I paid the guy out $15, $16 million over the past 10 years, right? So who's the sucker now? I paid $1 million to learn how to pick a phone up. Right? So you really have to let that set in. It's the best decision I ever made, though. The second best piece of advice that man ever gave me, though, was you will not make a fucking penny off this company for the first 4 years. So pick a salary you're comfortable with living with, and I'll give you that for the first 4 years, and you will make not a penny over it. I don't care if you have employees you have to pay more than you. I don't care if you think you deserve more money. I don't care if we have $15 million in the bank account. You will take not 1 penny in dividends until year 4. By that time, I had been so numb to spending money on making my life and my job easier, time, right? I'm paying for more time, that I stopped looking at the P&L on how much money are we profiting in because it didn't do anything for me. I'd rather spend it so that way I had more time and I could move faster. So that way year 4 came, I actually had a real business involved, right? And at that moment in time, year 4 came around, we had a couple $1 million in the bank account, right? And I went from making $75,000 to overnight having access to $1 million plus in capital in my own bank account from all that. But what I also did, though, because of that life lesson, I had 5 employees at my own company that made more money than I did. More money than the CEO did. 5 employees. A lot of people don't have the balls to do that, to pay the people that are reporting directly underneath them more money than themselves for long-term gain. And by doing that, though, that's how you build those employees for life, right? 3 of those 5 employees still work for me that were making more money for me, more money than me back then. And that was 8, 9 years ago. And they're still here at Drive to this day because of that. Because they knew that. They knew that I was paying them more money than I was even taking home myself. And so that's how you start to really build and create a core leadership culture, right, that can really take it across the country, is by applying a lot of those lessons and stop looking at your business like a bank account. And those were some of the biggest mind shift moments that I had. When I first started the company, I was thinking so heavy about how can I make $1 for myself, as opposed to how can I make $1 for my company, and how can I spend that dollar on somebody else to make me more dollars back in, right? To the point now where how many people are trying to recruit right now for sales? How many people? Anybody know?
20-something?
20-something people right now, right? That's equivalent to like, how much money in salaries is that, ish?
Whatever 20 times 55 to $60,000 is. A lot.
Good chunk of change, right, on that note. And I'm begging Matt to do his job. Like, Matt, please fucking give me people, right? And so I'm begging people to take my money because it's going to then pay back off in the long term, in the long scheme of things. So you have to stop focusing on living inside of your business and focusing on scaling the business first. And that's one of the big pieces I always talk to my employees about is like work-life balance. Work-life balance is for fucking old people. I hate to break it to you guys. If you're under 50 years old, shut the fuck up about work-life balance. Why are you selling yourself this myth? You wake up in the morning, you go work out, you did that for yourself. Guess what? You go to the office, you go across the street, you fuck around, that's for yourself. You eat lunch, that's for yourself, right? You go home, you eat dinner, you watch Netflix. All those things are for yourself. If you have a 40-year career ahead of you, right? You're 20 years old, you retire when you're 60. That's young. Retire at 60 is young, right? Grant Cardone's like 67 and he's still fucking going. And so you gotta realize though, if you work from 20 to 60, that's 40 years. Why the fuck are you worried about work-life balance in the first 10 years of your career? Crazy to me, right? That's for the back half of your career. That's Albert Pujols coming back to St. Louis fat as shit, just trying to jack home runs for $2.5 million. Right? That's the back half of your career. That's your work-life balance. It is not on the front end of your career. And so when you hear people say that to you, I'm sorry, you're just not a good fit for me. Right? You're not a good fit for me. I work 90 to 100 hours a week regularly, but I love what I do. And that's why you have to find something that you love what you do. But when you find those employees, again, that are under the age of 50, and they're talking to you about work-life balance, you have one of two options. Fire them immediately, or teach them what real work-life balance is, starting heavy with work and easing as your career goes. Not work-life balance for 23, right? That doesn't make any fucking sense. You gotta take the approach of fire immediately, or coach and train and mentor and do all of these things with them. A lot of times to get people to understand that though, you have to have them hold your pocket, right? You're gonna come hang out with Dad for a week. You're gonna see what I do every single day, because it's not as easy as you think it is. You gotta give them a look behind the curtain if you really want that employee to work out. But the other thing you gotta think about though is the reason why this happens is like the same thing as horses, right? I'm gonna tie work-life balance into horses today for you, Matt. So you gotta think about this, right? Have you guys seen a horse when they tie it up outside of a bar in a Western movie and they just like take like this little silly fucking knot, like, whoops, here's this 2,500 pound animal, and I'm tying it up with like a little fucking shoestring. You guys see that in like Western movies and stuff, right? Does that make sense to you? How do they do it? Does anybody know how they do that? Training, right? When they're really young, what do you call it, a young horse? When they're really young though, they can't rip the thing out of the fucking poles. They tug. They can't pull the pole out of the ground. So as the animal grows and gets bigger, it just sees you tying the knot, thinks it can't do anything, can't rip the whole bench off the wall, and it stays tied up. That's what work-life balance does for you. That's what salaries do for employees. And you have to break that thought process with people, or else they're going to think the rest of their life that this is what they should do, this is what they're going to amount to do, this is who I am. You have to break all those habits that schools teach people, right? That, CNN teaches people, right? That the media teaches people. Because if you don't, you're going to create a cancer fucking nightmare. So I always focus on making sure that whenever I'm doing one-on-ones with my employees, the people that report directly to me, right, I'm always super focused on, do you like what you're doing? Do you want to quit me and become a firefighter, right? Where are you going at with your life? What makes you tick? What are you looking to buy right now? And really trying to help them understand that, how usually more work will lead to a better result. I've gotten so crazy to this point in time with a lot of this stuff, is I start making deals with employees, and I've started making deals with employees now where I've guaranteed them salaries. And say, hey, yeah, you want to make $140,000 this year? I'll guarantee you the $140,000. No matter what you do, guarantee that you do it. What happens is that person feels so fucking indebted from me doing that and giving them exactly what they want, they end up hitting it on their own, naturally. Because the risk is now off their back, right? And it's trying to figure out what the obstacle is to remove that. And again, I only do that type of stuff for my lifelong people, right? The people that are staying with me for life. I would never do that for a person that's here for the moment. But if I have somebody that's a lifelong person and they need $140,000 for whatever reason, they waved their magic wand that day and said, I want 140 grand today. If I can give them that guarantee and they are that person to me, 9 times out of 10, that person is going to do exactly what they would have done anyway, is hit the goal, and it doesn't even matter. Or you give somebody a little extra money 1 year earlier to keep that lifelong employee, right? To prevent him from quitting to become a firefighter, right? And that's one of the big things you got to really focus on, is identifying those people and figuring out what makes them tick. Time? Good?
Yeah. What we got?
Cool.
Yeah, so Josh, obviously whenever you were on our podcast, you talked a lot about the Chief Experience Officer
Yeah.
too. And the one thing that you didn't mention then was the fact that you have 210 employees, you said now.
Ish, something like that, plus or minus a few.
But you've had 700 to 800.
Yeah.
Right? And so clearly one of the big indicators is, all right, if someone's under 50 and they're talking about work-life balance, all right, either got to coach them up or coach them out.
Yep.
But for early on, like you had a couple of those lifers which were great, they saw your vision early on, but for those people that didn't see your vision, and for a lot of people in here, including myself, who have employees or don't have nearly the amount that you do, I guess what was your process to try and get these people in here, help them see your vision?
Yeah.
So when
person to ask that question to because I almost had a mass exodus like 2 years into my company, honestly. So Facebook had a big change, a big strategy shift. They went from an auto algorithm where they showed all the content to everybody, and they switched to an edge rank algorithm. And so, non-nerdy stuff, what that means is when you post shit on Facebook, no one sees it anymore, right? So we identified this, and I went to the whole company, and I was like, listen, ads came out, we're pivoting the entire company overnight. We used to do non-paid posts. No more. We're not doing that anymore. All 15 of our clients, right? We're not doing that anymore. It's stupid. It doesn't work anymore. Technology's changed. We're doing paid ads now. We're going to call every one of our clients and tell them they have to pay us $300 more a month, and so we can strip this paid ad strategy. We're on 100% pay to play. Out of all of our employees, like 80% of them started a mutiny and said they were going to walk out and quit at this exact same time. Said I was absolutely insane and crazy. Called my business partner, like he needs to be out. He needs to be gone, right? He's lost his mind. He's tethered off the planet. This will never work. My business partner sat me down. He's like, how confident are you in it? I was like, I'm 100% confident in it. What ended up happening is 50% of the staff left and quit. 50% overnight left. The other 50% that stayed, we built 100% around them. Right? And those 50% of people, just for a fun fact for you guys, the 50% of those people that quit and left, none of them are even doing remotely close to what they would have been doing in my company. The people that were and that did stay are making over $300,000 a drive now. Those other people that quit and left, not even remotely close to it. So it really is about purging out those people and letting those people walk, right? A lot of times as a leader, as an owner, people aren't going to understand your vision. You have to be laser focused, you have to know your shit, right? Most of those people, 90% of those people aren't going to understand where you're going with it because they're in the bottom of the Titanic. And they're telling you, oh, we're fine, we're not going to hit a rock, no big deal. They can't even see the fucking water. And so you have to remember that as an owner that's in tune with their business, you don't have to listen to everybody's opinion, just the people that are your core, right? That are going to always be there for you. And so it's more about weeding out the people that don't support that ideology than it is about vetting anything else and building around, right? Fast to fire, slow to hire. Anything else? I'll answer anything.
What's up, Josh?
How you doing, bud?
Hunger. Like, did you ever hit a goal, like from a revenue perspective? What made you obviously love what you do, but what kind of made you get up and tick and drive?
Being a piece of shit from South County, right?
Yeah.
Being a piece of shit from South County, right? I remember, honestly, that's how I am though. Like I grew up in South County, dirt poor, right? I went to Melville High School, if you guys are familiar. Like I didn't go to a fancy high school, I didn't go to a fancy college, I went to Missouri State. And like I just remember going to like Napoli, being 21, and then everybody looked at you like, why the fuck are you here? And I just wanted to bury those people into the ground. So much to the point today that Napoli's one of my clients now. But I just wanted to bury those people in the fucking ground, the mommy and daddy money. And it's like, I will not stop until I've proven to every single one of those people, it doesn't matter you went to Vianney or DeSmet or wherever Matt went. Where'd you go? St. Mary's, that's right. Doesn't matter what school you went to, doesn't matter how rich your parents were, like you will not outwork me at all ever. Like I'm really weird about celebrating victories, like I don't do it, I don't like attention, I hate it at all, like it does not match my personal brand, I don't like it in the professional world, like I don't celebrate any victories. Like people like, we just opened another office, what are you gonna do to celebrate? Like, nothing, I'm gonna go to sleep. So I don't really celebrate a lot of victories, but the thing that always just keeps me going is every time I hear a story of somebody that came from money, that talked shit or put down somebody who didn't, it just makes me feel it even harder for me on like putting a chip on my shoulder.
What's your exit strategy?
Death, maybe? No, really. Once we get to the $100 million marker, 10 offices gets me to 100 million, so that's the reason why we're trying to rapidly expand. $10 million per office, 16 salespeople equate to that, 4 pods get me there. And so I've got a math formula pretty much chalked up to get to the 100 million. Once we approach that 100 million point, or getting close to that 100 million point, I'll feel like, my job here is done. I did it. I'll stay involved as on the board. We'll develop a board. I think our goal is like 70 million. We're going to develop a board. This year we should do about 52 million. If we hit our trajectory and our growth rate, we should do about 52 this year, hopefully. Around 70, we'll start electing a board, and then around 100, I'll start to exit out. of the company and probably shift further into our software company or start something else. I've been doing this 10 years. It gets a little bit difficult to find the passion, every day saying the same thing over and over and over again. But more so than that, it's everybody else, it's their time, right? I don't ever want to be the owner that stays walking around the hallways like, shackles clacking, like Ebenezer Scrooge. I want to be able to get out whenever time is fit, but not so much on my clock, more so on the development below me. Because if not, I'll lose those people, right? So I've got to carve those positions open for them, more so than for my own sanity. But my goal is right around that $70 million marker to start building that exit strategy, that succession plan, and then looking internally, looking externally, how does that look like, and then developing that board and then taking a board and an advisory role to it. So that way I can spend more time on my software company, public speaking stuff. We're talking about a book right now with me and Steve and John. So focusing on those other projects that I've been kind of bastardizing is something I really need to do.
What's your growth rate right now?
By percentage or dollars?
Growth by percentage.
By percentage, what did we do last year? The Inc. Award stuff.
It's like 17%.
117% growth rate last year for.
17%.
How drunk are you today?
Like second time. I've been here all day. I got here at 8 o'clock this morning. You put the bar right here.
Tell you
next
it's
to my office.
73% last year, but pre-COVID
Man, I love
was
everything you're saying.
112% for 3 years running high.
All right,
I'm here for you, baby.
Thank you, bud. He hasn't seen me in a while. He's excited.
We want to celebrate the judges
112%.
in town tonight, so I'm excited you're on.
Ideally, we're not too far away. Once our Tampa office opens, the really cool part about it is, talking about expansion, the really cool part about it is when we launched in Nashville cost me $2.3 million before I started profiting in Nashville. Miami cost me 1.7 before I started profiting Miami. Our Atlanta office was $519,000 before we started profiting. 100%, right? And so that's when we started really, and the reason why we started scaling faster is because now we have more human capital to pull from, because before we were just tapping our St. Louis leadership and just purging straight to the new market. Now when we open a new market, like our Tampa office, has a few people relocating from St. Louis, a few from Miami, a few from Nashville, one from Atlanta. So we're not draining resources anymore to open a new market. So it makes opening those markets cheaper because we're starting with more tenured people that have already worked at our company. And I'll pretty much do whatever I can to get those employees to move. I'll cut whatever deal that I have to cut with them. Whether or not I have to fly you back and forth between St. Louis and Dallas every week, right? Whether or not I have to give you a crazy signing bonus, whatever, let you hackle me in the back drunk, right? Whatever it is. I'll get you to Dallas somewhere.
Was there anything specifically that helps you get the mindset that you currently have outside of just doing?
Honestly. As weird as it sounds, it's funny because people ask me that all the time. It's like, what books do you read? And it's like, I get that all, this number one question I always get asked, what books do you read? None. I read nothing. I really don't. And I get people laugh at me all the time for it because I talk to all these business owners and high-level employees, like C-level employees, and they have like all this contradicting ideology. And it's like I'll hear a little Tony Robbins shit, and then I'll hear a little Grant Cardone stuff, and then I'll hear some crazy Wolf of Wall Street shit. It's like, this doesn't even make sense at all. And then what ends up happening is people have this ball of ideology, and none of it fits together anymore. That's really confusing to your employees, right? And so it's a very expensive way to learn. Let me give you that. It's a very expensive way to learn, but I learn a lot faster by fucking my own stuff up. And the bigger the fuck up, the faster I can move, right? So when I lose an employee that's a super important key role person employee to me, I run the other direction 1,000 miles an hour, spend a ton of money to try to undo what I did and bring more talent in differently, right? So my friend Matt in the back, whenever we brought Matt on to be our recruiter, Matt's like, you needed me like 2 years ago, right? And I was like, give me everything that I can. And then he told me the price, like, give me a little bit of what I want. And then now to this day though, Matt's got me on this recruiting train where it's like, you hire me 10 internal recruiters, I want to pay you to manage them, and all this stuff because those mistakes that I made on recruiting had cost me so millions and millions of dollars. Well, now I'm more willing to dump whatever it is to avoid any conflict like that ever happening again. So I prefer to fuck my own stuff up because that makes me actually move faster than reading somebody else's ideology, in my opinion.
So I've been at Drive like 2 years now, so you've grown up Atlanta, Miami. I do notice Atlanta seems to be getting up faster than Miami and Drive's scaling a lot, which I feel like a lot of people here are. What like internal mindset, policy, or like stuff you take from each office you apply to others to like make sure when you scale up other offices or scale the business to keep the quality at the same level?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Patrick. It's more of like a math equation, right? Business is math. You have to be good at math to be good at business. You could fumble your way through a couple $1 million. Don't get me wrong, for sure. We used to joke around. You could bro your way to 100 million. You can't bro your way to 100 million. You could bro your way to 3 million, 4 million. And so what ends up happening though is along the way we realized that hey, this is just all math, right? And so with our Atlanta office, what we did heavily was we transferred clients to the Atlanta office so that way it would hit its profitability a lot faster. Plus we tripled our sales team bringing it in with the understanding that if we brought in a higher, more veteran operations team, they would be able to handle it. And so our director that we brought into Atlanta just got done opening our office in Miami. So he was kind of like weathered for the storm, right? He went to World War I and he's turned right back around and going and shipping back out. So he kind of understood what was going to happen to him when we did it, and then we doubled our sales team going into it, and so that way we had the more tenured people on the operations side, the higher volume, the higher velocity of sales. If you guys are in like what we're in contract businesses, right? We have residual revenue from all of our partners. All of our partners go on 12-month, 18-month agreements. So when we start an office, we have no terminations for the first 12 to 18 months. And so that's our sweet spot. That's our opportunity to really jump as far as we can in that first 12 to 18 months because you have no clients that are burning off because no one can cancel because you're in commitments and contracts. Sure, you have a handful of people that are pieces of shit and don't pay their bills, right? It's going to happen. But for a majority part of it, you have no attrition yet. And so our thought process is move as fast as we can before attrition kicks in, so that way once attrition kicks in, you're already good. And so we really just look at it from a math perspective of how many business developers do we need to bring in versus what our attrition rate will be based off historical data in 12 to 18 months, depending on term length, and then just do the math on where you want to be at. And that's our biggest goal. The other big shift that we've started to make is micro positions, and I've really ran with it. Before at Drive, there was just like, you were a graphic designer, and then you had a boss. What I've learned is that people prefer to get smaller micro incentives, even if they're fake bullshit titles, right? From a graphic designer to a senior graphic designer. It means fucking nothing, right? You get it just by breathing. And you get an extra 2 to 3 grand here, but you're gonna go home to your mommy and daddy and say, I got a promotion, I'm a senior graphic designer now, right? And then now though, you go and tell all your friends and your family you got a promotion at work, because who hides a fucking promotion? Now you have to have a positive sentiment, though, to every single person in your personal life. So it makes it really difficult for you to go home to bitch to your wife, husband, sister, plant, dog, whatever it is, and bitch about your job whenever you were just so excited about a promotion, right? So it buys you a little bit more tenure to help develop those employees that are kind of on the border if you want to keep them or not keep them. If they get some type of tenure raise, right, that everybody gets, but they feel special because they get a title change, and they can go tell everybody they got a title change, you buy a little bit more time for development, and then you keep scaling people up. And so now you have an organization like at Drive, you know, we're going to have associate graphic designers, senior graphic designers, associate directors, associate vice presidents. It's the same amount of money, but now there's 7 different promotions you can get as opposed to 1. And we've realized over the years that allowing those micro promotions makes so much more sense for us because that makes your employees a lot happier. But the biggest thing though is that makes them a beacon of like being a positive brand ambassador for your company. Because what do? You have a bad day at work, you go home and bitch to your spouse. Like, fuck J5, work sucked today. Right? This is what fucking happened to me. And then you go massage your fucking back, right? Tell you it's gonna be all right. Those spouses cause more turnover at your company than you could ever fucking imagine, right? Stop dealing with Marshall, right? He's a fucking dickhead, right? Stop dealing with Brocky, he's a dickhead. Whatever it might be. And so you gotta understand that those spouses are your biggest enemy. And how do you flip those people to now be advocates? right? We'll change the narrative between the employee and the spouse with promotions, cool shit, right? Cool events, cool parties, cool promotions, right? Trying to do all those things that you can for that employee at work. So when they come home, the spouse now becomes an ally. Questions about that?
Do salespeople still cold call?
Oh yeah, fuck yeah. No, everybody that's in my age demographic and breakdown thinks they can hide behind a computer screen. And so we pound the phones. We made 38,000 phone calls last month.
I get tired of calling all the time.
Fuck yeah.
How does your company know when I turn on ads? They call me when I turn on Facebook ads.
Through the private, what's called the info and ad section. So if you go to your Facebook page, click info and ads.
Yeah,
it's
so
all
I can
short.
delete that or something.
You can't delete it. It's public. Facebook keeps it public. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, we pound the phones. We do tons of phone calls. We get a lot of inbound too, but a majority of our stuff is just pounding the phones. But what are you doing? What's going on?
Tell your people when you get past the gatekeeper, because your gatekeepers are good.
Yeah, I'm impossible to get a hold of. We look up cell phones. So we have a company called Fast People Search, and you type anybody's name into Fast People Search, and it'll give you their cell phone number. And so we call directly to cell phones. Yeah, if you go to fastpeoplesearch.com, free cell phone numbers. And so fuck calling the business. We'll call you on your cell phone. When people are like, how'd you get my cell phone number? Like, the internet. Like, oh, cool.
We'll argue on the sewer.
Yeah, buddy.
We'll talk about it later.
Always ready.
That's where time's up, Matt.